right, welcome back. You're watching Daybreak. I'm Victoria Rubadiri, sitting in for Trevor Ombija. The discussion continues with me in studio, Wilson Sosion, a nominated Member of Parliament, and Suleiman Bashir, Advocate of the High Court, as well as Kevin Osido, Executive Director of the County Governance Watch. Gentlemen, welcome once again. So, Honourable Sosion, you wanted to just wrap up your thoughts around these charters and basically outcomes from the economic.
Yes, so I've said yes. Kenya, for a long time, for now, we've invested so much in capital, the capital sector at the expense of the production sector. So we'll direct, Kenya Kwanza will direct resources very greatly to the manufacturing, to the housing, to value addition, and even to revamp agriculture. And that is going to address the issues of the people at the bottom of the pyramid. And we are doing things which are very specific and measurable, and programs that are clear, those which we have negotiated with the people. To address the unemployment, this is what we are going to focus on. Pumping 100 billion shillings to these particular sectors, the manufacturing, housing, value addition. And that really is going to inject life to the production sector. No economy anywhere in the world can progress if you completely shut down the production sector. The production sector must be protected because that is going to address the poverty issues of every household. Number two, you cannot kill the micro, small, medium enterprises. The big businesses have destroyed the micro, medium, small enterprises of ordinary Kenyans.
And you mentioned this before we went to break, Honourable Sosion. So let me just get Suleiman's reaction to that really quickly. When you hear some of the action points in terms of how they want to implement the charters, do you think those will hold Kenya Kwanza to account? Is that enough?
I think, Vicky, we have lately appreciated a new animal in town. It's called the charters that has been introduced by Kenya Kwanza. But I think more or less, these charters are loose political documents. They are not binding in law. You cannot revisit them. You cannot enforce them tomorrow. So I think it is just, it's more or less an MOU that it's trying to sign with various sector-specific bodies. So I think it is just a PR document in a way. It's a document that tomorrow the youth, the one that has been signed with the youth cannot go back and hold those who have signed those documents with them to account. Right. It is very difficult to argue that it's a binding legal document as such. So I think it's really, really important to appreciate it to that extent, that it is seeking to serve a certain political interest. It's a politician who is telling you, let me sign this agreement with you. But mind you, that agreement can never ever be enforced, or you can never hold that person to account. And I think, Vicky, away from that, there are few realities that we are grappling with in our country. We are at a point whereby we are having fiscal deficits, a huge tax burden, unpredictable tax changes in our country, poor economic growth and all that. So I think one of the issues that I'm having with the presidential contenders and those who have launched their manifestos together with those who in the next few years will be launching theirs is the ideas are all same fresh ideas, telling us how the productivity industry will be improved, how the manufacturing industry will be improved, how the industry, how industrialization will be able to address the aspect of unemployment and all that. Yeah. But this is the problem. We are being told that we shall have taxes shall be reduced, subsidies shall be there, more and more youth shall be employed, and about 100 billion shall be set aside for the youth or for economic recovery and all that. I think the kind of history or the kind of narrative that we're being given is that the president is like an economic development officer who will just assume office, who has a lot of money to spend. I think there are only two ways to be able to run the country successfully with the kind of promises we are being given. The first thing will be the aspect of cutting on cost. If we cut on the huge wage bill, at least we can say there is something we are saving on that. And innovative ideas with respect to revenue generation. They are not sharing with us clear wisdom on the two concepts, but they're being told hundreds and hundreds of billions shall be allocated for Project X. And I think that is something that may not be realistic. I mean, Honorable Sosion talked about a manifesto being measurable and being realistic. Right. When we talk about it being realistic and being measurable, that is the kind of an issue we expect. Tell us how you are going to generate that revenue. And I think the other thing that we ought to talk about with respect to the manifestos that are being launched is that let us revisit the 2013-2017 manifestos. A lot has been said about what has been launched. Our Deputy President is the same at the time he wasn't vying for presidency, with a lot of respect to him, but he's the same gentleman who has shared with Kenyans a lot of aspirations as to how he is going to give us a turnaround economy. The Honorable Raila Odinga, on the same aspect, the CORD coalition has given us its manifesto at the time. So I think what we are tinkering with are the same old models of addressing the social inequalities, the economic inequalities, the problems, the unemployment and all that. We are not having any fresh idea with respect to addressing the youth unemployment, for example. What is happening is they are just telling us how they're going to engineer the result, but they're not telling us how the means shall be attained. And I think that's the kind of a problem that I'm having. And just before I give Honorable Sosion the opportunity to disrupt, is
I'm not disrupting.
we have Article 95 of the Constitution that gives the Parliament a lot of powers with respect to how it could have done a lot with respect to legislative changes, with respect to a lot that could have been addressed. The issues that we are now tinkering with, the issues that are still before us are issues that could have been handled before our parliament. There is an issue. There was the aspect of holding the specific ministries to account with respect to subsidies, with respect to tax cuts and all that. I think we are still in the same old model of trying to see which manifesto promises us more and more. But I think this is a time for Kenyans to think. There are three ways, if at all you want to look at a manifesto and say, is this manifesto auguring with my ideas? Always look at a manifesto and see, is it addressing the problems that is facing you as an individual in our country? And a manifesto ought not to be targeting, for example, just the supporters of UD or the supporters of ODM. It is about governing the entire country. And I think it's a very serious document that we should take seriously. But for me, conclusively, we let us for now wish away the aspect of charters. So, we cannot hold them to account.
Honorable Sosion, I'll have you respond, but let me come and get Kevin in really quickly. Otherwise, we'll limit it to just who is in studio. Kevin, I'm sure you've heard some of the action points from Honorable Sosion and the concerns from Suleiman in terms of we need to hear some clear concepts on revenue generation and cutting back as well. We have a huge debt burden, a wage bill as well that we need to manage. So a lot of these manifestos promising money, huge amounts of funds to go and uplift Kenyans, and rightfully so. But in terms of operating government and taking the economy forward, we also need to look at how can we make more money moving forward. Let me just get your reaction on that, Kevin.
Victoria, I'm quite disappointed if the kind of things that Mr. Sosion is mentioning are actually some of the elements that they wish to cover in their manifesto. That would be quite discouraging to a number of people that I believe they have talked to. It is not inspiring at all. There is nothing really innovative. There is nothing creative in the kind of things that Mr. Sosion is talking about, particularly looking at the kind of context that we already painted at the first segment of this show, where Kenyans are looking forward to hope. People are stressed in their families. Look at the levels of mental health, the killings, the kind of miscommunication that is happening in families. People are looking for a government that is going to inspire hope and instill some sense of dignity and the fact that there is a better tomorrow. But unfortunately, the kind of things that Mr. Sosion is talking about, quite disenfranchising, if probably I could say so. Why? I say so because this country has a dream document called the Vision 2030. We are only in 2022. 8 more years to go, even as we seek to achieve that particular dream. And if you look at the medium-term framework mechanism of the Vision 2030, it breaks down those specific elements that Mr. Sosion is talking about, that any government that comes in place really is supposed to just look at the document and put forth mechanisms in terms of how you're going to implement those particular issues. I am not inspired by 100 billion. What is 100 billion shillings? If Kenya is losing 2 billion shillings per day, it means that your government in 5 days will give us 100 billion and then 5 days we lose it. Today, and because members, including Mheshimiwa Sosion of Parliament, have raised the debt burden of this country to almost a negative 10.5 trillion about 3 weeks ago before Parliament was prorogued. There is nothing that you're telling us about how you, as Suleiman is saying, what is your mechanism to deal with the debt burden? Because I'm told today Kenya is borrowing 2.5 trillion shillings per day. And look at the levels of loopholes. What do you want to do with corruption? We hear people talking about dealing with corruption in 100 days. Another gentleman says, I will jail the corrupt and hang them. And those are partly why the reason as to why some of these contenders and candidates are actually streaming and trenching on Twitter almost on a single basis. Your manifesto, from the first 34 minutes you've been talking to me as a Kenyan, you have told me nothing about corruption. You are talking bottom up, and unfortunately, when we talk about, for instance, devolution, the people who are supposed to implement the manifesto at the grassroots level are the locals. The people who sit at the highest decision-making platforms of your Kenya Kwanza coalition, in my view, are not hustlers. They are not from the bottom up. So who is going to be tasked, as Victoria asked the accountability question, who is going to be tasked to implement your manifesto? It is not the local mamamboga. It is not the person that you are seeking out their views to be able to put it to the fore. Number three, this country, Victoria, Suleiman, and Mr. Sosion, is known for distrust, mistrust in MOUs, in MOS, in these charters, people signing documents and saying, I don't even know what I signed. We have good examples. What is the commitment that your presidential candidate and his running mate, including the chief officers and the CECs and the governors that are going to run on your party coalition, are going to actually commit to implement the charters? Because you are spending time, you are spending resources. Part of it is government money, because your presidential candidate is a sitting deputy president who is being paid on taxpayers' monies. Part of the infrastructure that he has to campaign, the vehicles, the security, is taxpayers' money. But this gentleman, Victoria, I remember when the president launched the MSc policy at Strathmore University, the seat of the deputy president was present, but he was not there. Why come and tell us that you want to re-engineer micro and small medium enterprises, but yet you do not support what the current government, for which you are a deputy president, sitting in office, having not resigned, is not implementing? You talk about agriculture and productivity. You talk about maize being imported from Brazil, rice from South Africa. We know the people importing this rice and maize. Where is the commitment and the encouragement for Kenyans that Kenya Kwanza is going to commit to implement those aspects? And we need to bring I think, Victoria, it's being populist. Kenya Kwanza is populist and has taken advantage of certain gaps, particularly misinformation, because we have Vision 2030 that has been broken down, and there is no really mechanism, in my view. All right, let's have Honorable Sosion respond to that. Thank you for your submissions there. And just to be clear, he was not stating the manifesto. It hasn't been launched yet. So these are the charters, correct, from the counties? Yeah, definitely I'm discussing the charters. These are the prelude to the manifestos. And I'm urging my brother Osido, scale down your adrenaline and let us apply our minds to the issues at hand. And as I've stated, once a president is elected, the manifesto becomes government policy. That is not in doubt. And this is not the first time that we are engaging in this type of agreements. In 2002, we had an agreement with President Kibaki, but it was never signed in the education sector. It was an oral commitment that you teachers, once I get elected as president, I will collect the taxes and pay free education from primary up to class 8. And I will pay all the salaries that have not been paid. So really, in terms of commitments, you can make oral commitment, you can make written commitment. Correct. And I'm sure as a lawyer, that really is what happens. But do they always stand? And therefore, yes, they stand. It stood with Kibaki. Free education. Well, can you see that's a leader by leader basis? It's a popular thing. And I can tell you 100% the manner, and you look at how Kenya Kwanza has handled the economic charters and programs and everything, it is going to be done. By the time our presidential candidates commits in terms of signatures in those particular programs, it shall be done. So the charters are not mere. We are not signing documents to take them to the court of laws and to do what? It's commitment, so that when you are a leader, you must
You must implement what you
So
promised
what
the people.
happens?
Number two, where is the money coming from? Rubadiri and Kenya and a majority of the Kenyans, we should know this is a rich country. It's only that the economy has been mismanaged. There's always been an admission, and the current president admitted that 2 billion is lost daily through corruption.
So how will you seal those
That should be dealt with.
How will that be sealed?
We are not sitting within Kenya Kwanza. If you look at most of us who are in Kenya Kwanza, we are not sitting so that we can promote corruption. There should be zero tolerance to corruption. And then tax evasion, which even the UN and AU has put it in billions and billions of shillings. The big boys who are now the corner of Asimio, running big businesses with government and evading taxes.
You have to substantiate
Everyone must have to pay taxes. And so this is a rich economy. If you analyze the Kenyan economy, it's one of the strongest economies in the region and in the world, and we have a potentiality and opportunity. So we have enough resources to be able to do all this. And then lastly, so that we can wrap up this, and we wait for the manifesto itself in details. Kenya Kwanza is committed to strengthening institutions. You cannot do anything without clear leadership, strong institutions. And we've made it very clear that the judiciary, where prosecution has to be undertaken for criminals, for those who are corrupt, is going to be strengthened as an institution. And the judiciary shall be fully financed so it is able to carry out its mandate.
Right.
And once that is done, we'll be able to strengthen governance, to deter corruption, and to protect collection of revenue. And once we have revenue, it will not only be 100 billion getting to the employment sector and to manufacturing. It will be more than that. It will not be 50 billion being directed to micro, small, medium enterprises. Farmers will have the greatest relief in terms of lowering of farm inputs and also strengthening even the quality of seeds and managing the agricultural system and even the healthcare system. So all this will work if we protect our revenue and resources. And it begins with good governance, and it begins with strengthening our institutions. And this is a commitment we've made. The judiciary of Kenya shall be strengthened, and even parliament shall also be strengthened. And anything under state capture, we want to liberate this country and remove this country, our institutions, from state capture. Once they are liberated and left free to work, everything will work. Kenya is a potential economy, is a strong country. It's a matter of urgency now, and it cannot be postponed to tomorrow. Okay. That we must liberate 60% of Kenyans who are living below poverty line and extricate them from poverty. And that is why we are bold about the bottom-up economy, and we shall push it to the very end. And by the way, the public are very excited about it.
No, absolutely.
A lot of excitement
and we're waiting
to the public.
for that launch later on today. So, Layman, your quick reaction to that, and then Kevin, as we move on to the issue of zoning, because we need to rest the matter of manifesto so we can move on.
Absolutely. You see, Victoria, one of the things or one of the conversations that shall never die before the election and after the election is the issue of the discussion around the manifesto. But I think one of the things that we need to be clear on is that at the moment Kenyans are grappling with poor economy and a lot of social ill will, social problems, unemployment, and all that. The aspect of good governance is a very important. It's a good component of a manifesto. It ought to be there. It is a must. But now, for us to transform our country, we ought to work within our systems and ensure that all the institutions are independent, well liberated, and we ensure each and every institution is there to do its work as required. And I really liked when you asked Honorable Sosion the question on he told you that 2 billion shillings is being stolen every day. The answer to that is yes, we can seal that loophole. How do you do that? Give the judiciary enough independence. Give it funding. Ensure the office of the ODPP is independent. Office of the Inspector General of the Police and the DCI ought to be independent and ensure that every institution works within the law, and it's so independent to an extent that it achieves its objectives. That is how we can ensure that the 2 billion shillings stolen every day shall be sealed. The only issue is once a candidate wins and assumes office, that particular goodwill disappears. It just disappears like that. Parliament ends up again dying. The only time our parliament wakes up from its deep slumber is towards the final year to the general election. That is what we have had as a country. That has been the problem. So the solution is there, only that the political goodwill has not been there, and that is what we need to work on.
Yeah.
Correct. Then the other thing is, the reason we keep talking about the manifesto is that the manifesto is a reflection of the person we want to elect into office. This person is telling you, this document, you will hold me accountable for what I'm promising you today. That is why it's very important. Dear Kenyans, read the Azimio's manifesto, read Kenya Kwanza's manifesto. Make good decisions. See which one is realistic, which one is reasonable. But one of the things that I can assure you is that manifestos, one of the other things that we expect is something called the public good. A manifesto ought to cover that thing which is called the public good, which means the government, there are certain services that it must not charge us. Like ensuring that we are all secure, that we have a good town, that we can all do our business within, ensure that our rights and responsibilities are respected, ensure that we have good roads. Those are the kind of goods that we also expect a manifesto to come with, other than it being realistic and all that. So I think, Victoria, the question of good governance, the reason as to why it is not coming up, or priority number one at the moment, is people are sleeping hungry. That is the problem that we're having. So the reason as to why we're having the candidates talking about the poor economy, unemployment, the reason as to why we are prioritizing all that is the genesis of this is poor governance. The genesis of all the problems that we are now grappling with is as a result of poor governance. But the reason as to why they are not saying number one will be the question of ensuring that we have good governance system is because they want to convince the people, you are hungry at the moment. Let me tell you how I can subsidize agriculture, the food sector, how I can ensure that that the industry shall be taken care of. But I have one more concern with the candidates. The aspect of being in a rush, telling Kenyans that you will handle all corruption and corrupt-related issues within 100 days. 100
days, yeah.
Yes, 100 days, I think, is being overambitious. When you tell us that you want to, you will ensure the high cost of living will be cascaded downwards within 50 days or 60 days in office. Don't be in a rush. Give the Kenyans a good strategy that is workable, that is realistic. That is what we are looking for.
Okay, and I understand Professor George Wajackoya, one of the presidential candidates, is launching his manifesto today as well at KICC, so that will give Kenyans a third manifesto to interrogate. Kevin, let me get your final word on the manifesto issue before we move on, and your thoughts on that.
Thank you, Victoria, once again. And for me, as rightfully said earlier on, is that a manifesto is a promissory note. It is a document of intent to share what you want to be able to do when you are elected, or if you are elected into office. It is important for us as Kenyans to interrogate these documents and interrogate the intentions, and also look at the levels of commitment. In fact, one of my friends, Dr. Mugo, has just texted me from Nyeri to ask Mr. Sosion how come some of the things that he's talking about are promises that were also made 10 years ago. And so the commitments of some of the politicians is not quite inspiring to Kenyans. But on the question, Victoria, of good governance, we also have to move forward and not just look at the institutional level of it, but also the value system that the citizenry or the electorate or the populace have. Because if you look at 2002, Kenyans were actually arresting police officers who were picking bribes on the streets and along our highways. What has transpired 20 years down the line, that today, in fact, for you to run for office in Kenya, as Dr. Matiang'i would say, you must be corrupt. A research that was done on inspirational levels of young people in one of the universities indicate that 74% of Kenyans would rather bribe to be able to get employed. And so to them, hard work is not anything that probably would be instilled in their value system. And it looks quite true to the extent that even some of the people who are running for office are people who might not, if you look at and interrogate some of their value systems, it's not quite encouraging to most of the people. So for me, on the question of good governance, and that's one of the things that we do at County Governance Watch almost on a daily basis, working with counties. Today we are in Nakuru County to look at the security concerns since yesterday, And if most of the questions that even the elders are asking is, how are we inspiring our young people to be able to safeguard the counties, the nation, beyond tomorrow? And so the value system is a question that Victoria, beyond looking at institutions, because there is a process that gets somebody to the judiciary. Before you get to the judiciary, what is your level of engagement at an individual level on what you want to do, whether it is to do it for good or whether to do it for bad? So even as we talk about strengthening institutions, which is a very good measure and indicator for good governance for most nations, if not globally, the question of Article 10, Chapter 6 of our Constitution is a question that I believe that presidential candidates, political party manifestos should, and in my view, must begin to look at, so that we also inspire the younger generation to be hopeful about a better tomorrow. Otherwise, if it is all stolen, 2 billion in a day, and we can't really deal with the issues of filling the gaps, there might be no Kenya even to elect anybody tomorrow. Victoria.
Now, let's move on to the education question really quickly. Of course, we know in the Azimio Manifesto, there's a free education up to university level, a grand promise there. And, you know, from where you sit, Honorable Sosion, this has been your purview for many years. Where do you see Kenya Kwanza answering that question?
Yeah, indeed. I have participated very deeply in fighting for free education in this country, from Kibaki time and up to where we are. And I can say in 2022, there's a lot that needs to be done. The promissory note by Azimio are very general. It doesn't give a specific program, how it is going to be done, the budget line, and the timelines. And that one, in planning for education, you must identify clear programs clearly. The programs of action, and the timelines to attain that, and the budget. In Kenya Kwanza, number one, we are going to fix the current problem of CBC. And our presidential candidate has given a commitment that fresh public engagements will be opened, will be reopened.
So what is the problem with CBC in your view?
Of course, it's not working. That is docked with a lot of controversy.
Well, it can be argued it's in its fledgling stages. It hasn't even had a chance to be implemented.
A good curriculum in a simple way. Teachers must be very happy and ready to teach it. Learners must be happy. Parents must also be extremely happy.
Have you not given it a chance yet?
That is how it is. It has been given 5 years, and within the framework of UNESCO...
Is 5 years enough to give it that...
according to international standards of UNESCO, a curriculum must be reviewed after 5 years. That is mandatory.
So what would be the remedy?
And those are international benchmark standards. And Kenya Kwanza, we've considered the concerns of Kenyans that have been raised, and Kenya Kwanza shall address itself deeply to the existing curriculum so that it is reviewed properly through a robust public participation engagement in line with the principle of governance of our Constitution. Everything we must engage the public, particularly in terms of the content of the curriculum and also in terms of the structure. And our presidential candidate said very clearly, we are going to focus on a strong knowledge-based education system that will integrate competencies, that will also integrate the 21st century skills, and that is going to strengthen values. And so this format and framework of approaching it is within international standards. So we are not just doing things from the blues. We are working within Vision 2030 of Kenya, and we are working within the Sustainable Development Agenda goals of the UN. Other aspects within, other than addressing the curriculum. So Kenyans should be happy. Parents should be happy. And children should be happy. We want to deliver a curriculum as Kenya Kwanza that will make teachers very happy and when they are teaching. Number two, that will make learners very happy. And that will make parents very happy. Okay. We want a happy school system, and that will churn out graduates that are competitive locally and also internationally. Not Rubadiri, that Kenya, in terms of global competitiveness, will be #1 in Africa in terms of quality and access. Now we've dropped to #7 because of these business reforms that have been brought to the sector over time. We are going to sanitize and clear them and organize a school system that will bring us back to the top of the charts in Kenya or even globally. Other major reforms is that Kenya Kwanza has considered teachers as a fundamental tools to deliver education. And we must retain a strong, motivated, quality teaching force. And this is what we are going to do. Number one, employ enough teachers, and we are very specific. The shortage currently stands at 116,000. And so Kenya Kwanza, in the first 1 year, is going to employ 58,000 teachers on a budget of at least 25 billion. And as an economy, we must put money in our education system so that our children can access quality education. And in 2 years, all the teachers shall have been employed. This is going to reduce the workload on teachers, allow teachers to prepare properly for lessons, and mount quality teaching in our classrooms. And this is going to safeguard and protect the quality of our education, and also offload the cost of indirect charges on parents. Teachers shall be available in all parts of the country, including in marginal areas. And I think this is a radical proposal from Kenya Kwanza. And then number two, Kenya Kwanza will also abolish the delocalization system of teaching and of deployment of teachers. And we shall adopt a system where teachers can choose where to teach. If you choose to teach outside your localities, you can be given an incentive so that teachers can be happy. Number three, the teacher professional development in line with the international standards will be funded by government, and training will be conducted by government. A departure from current arrangement that is forcing teachers to pay. In other aspects that is going to strengthen the school systems, number one, Kenya Kwanza is going to introduce...
And we need to save that, Honorable Sosion, maybe for another time, because
generally,
we are
in terms of
very
funding,
limited.
let me wrap it up.
We need to segue into
the area of
IEC
funding
issue.
is key. Area of funding is key.